So welcome to the invitation. The invitation is a conversation between two friends about what it means to be human. And those two friends having that conversation is Linda Cameron and me, Michael Brown. And I'll just tell you a little bit about myself briefly. And before I tell you about myself, we just want to let you know that the topic of today is Mother's Day. And we're asking the questions, what is the essence of mothering? And the intention of this call is to celebrate and honor the power of motherhood. And so the host today is Linda Cameron and me, Michael Brown. And just to let you know a little bit about myself, my name is Michael Brown. I'm a spiritual life coach, and I'm an author of the book, You Are a Gift to the World, Blessings from My Mom. And you can find more about me and what I do. What I do basically is I help people to turn their dream into reality. And I have two websites. My coaching website is changeyourlifecoaching.com. And the website for the book, You Are a Gift to the World, is youareagift.com, www.youareagift.com. You go there and get a free chapter and all kind of stuff. That's actually where we host the podcast, so you can listen to our other podcasts that me and Linda have done. And if you'd like to call me and set up a consultation, a coaching consultation, you can reach me at 760-504-9631, and we can start turning your dream into reality. That's me, and then my friend who's on the call, Linda. Linda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Linda Cameron, and I'm a life coach, and I also work doing community organizing. I can be reached through my cell phone number, 301-520-6929, or my website, Tender Loving Care TLC. That's tenderlovingcaretlc.com. And I'm working on a series right now called Women, Wisdom, and Wine. And I'm going to be recording that series, and it should be posted online probably by the end of the summer.
Oh, that sounds very, very interesting. We definitely look forward to that, Linda. We'd like to hear more about that.
Okay.
All right. And so now I'm going to go into, just to create a context for Mother's Day for us, I'm going to go share a brief history of Mother's Day. The celebration of Mother's Day and motherhood occurs throughout the world. Many of these histories can be tracked back to ancient festivals, like the Greek cult or the Roman festivals of Hilaria. But not all these celebrations of Mother's Day are directly connected, or the way it happens in the United States is not exactly the same. But we're going to talk about the United States. And the United States celebrates Mother's Day on the second Sunday in May. Julia Ward Howe first issued her Mother's Day Proclamation in 1870 as a call for women to join in the support of disarmament. In the 1880s and 1890s, there were several further attempts to establish an American Mother's Day, but these didn't succeed beyond the local level. The current holiday was created by Anna Jarvis in Grafton, West Virginia in 1908 as a day to honor one's mother. Jarvis wanted to accomplish her mother's dream of making a celebration for all mothers, although the idea didn't take off until she enlisted the services of a wealthy Philadelphia merchant named John Wanamaker. She kept promoting the holiday until finally President Woodrow Wilson made it an official national holiday in 1914. The holiday eventually became so highly commercialized that many, including its founder, Anna Jarvis, considered it a hallmark, quote-unquote, a hallmark holiday, one with an overwhelming commercial purpose. Jarvis eventually ended up opposing the holiday she helped to create. She died in 1948, regretting what had become of her holiday. In the United States, Mother's Day remains one of the biggest days for sales of flowers, greeting cards, and the like. It is also the biggest holiday for long-distance telephone calls. So that's a brief history of Mother's Day, and now we're going to jump right into the question that we posed at the beginning. And the question that we're really looking at is, and exploring, is what is the essence of mothering? and I'm just going to start out by asking you that question, Linda. What is the essence of mothering?
I think before we go there, we should probably look at the intention.
Okay, let me go back to the intention. So the intention is to celebrate and honor the power of motherhood.
Okay.
Celebrate and honor the power of motherhood.
Okay.
And so from that place right there, you know, I'll ask you that question again. What comes up for you, Linda, as being the essence of mothering?
I think a couple of things actually come up for me. I think about standing for life. I think about nurturing that life. I think about guiding that life. I think about surrendering and letting that life go forward. So that's what comes up for me when I think about the essence of that, mothering. I think about it as almost like a gumbo. And you need all of those ingredients.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it, right?
Right, exactly. There's a lot that goes into it. Go ahead.
I was going to say one of the, I think the distinctions we were talking about before the call, and me and Linda, we were preparing, we were talking about the distinction between attachment versus detachment in mothering.
Mm-hmm. Right. So obviously, loving someone, loving a child. It's like I've heard people say that they thought they knew what love was until they had a child. And then they expanded, and their hearts grew so large, and that the love just was almost overwhelming that they felt for their child. And it's one of those things people say, unless you experience it, it's hard to really distill, down in terms of, words. And so to really to grasp it, that what it is to love someone more than you love your own self, your own flesh and blood, your own life. I think it's a pretty powerful thing, and I can say that I was blessed and fortunate to have a mother like that. And there are elements that come to my mind. I think of my mother. I think of service. I think of sacrifice.
Yeah.
I think of joy.
Yeah.
My mother said to me one day that every morning she wakes up and she feels so happy that she gets to be my mother. One more day.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a powerful.
So, you know what word comes to my mind? Privilege.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a privilege.
And honor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honor. Yeah.
And you know what? I just want to share this with people out there. Like me and Linda, we've been friends for over 15 years, and we know a lot about. Like I know a lot about her mother. She knows a lot about our mother. It's like we have the same mother. Our mothers are very much alike. When we talk, we're like, we have the same mother. And you reminded me of something that my mother said. Like I remember my mother talked about the experience of being pregnant, and what that felt like, or that experience of being pregnant, like where she was just like, she felt like she was floating down the street. And I know all women don't have this experience, but I think this kind of speaks to what you're saying. Like she remember saying like she said she felt so beautiful that I remember like saying something like she couldn't understand how everybody couldn't see that, like she would just be like beaming and lit up and like, oh my God, this is like, she said she never felt so alive as when she was pregnant.
Wow.
You're living with a possibility in your body. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like
that is absolutely what it is.
Oh my God, man! I mean, I never even thought of it that way. But it's like you have a possibility growing inside you physically, a physical possibility.
Mhm.
You know, and it's weird. I think I just for the first time maybe have gotten an inkling because I'm not a mother, and Linda never had a child, so we're not mothers. But we still feel it in that sense. But but I just got that right now for myself of like, wow, what it must be like to walk around with a living being inside of you.
Yeah, to be walking around with a living possibility.
Yeah, like all the thoughts that must go through your mind and your heart of like, what's going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it makes me think of my mom. I wrote the book, You Are a Gift to the World, Blessings from My Mom, and I got that from my mom. My mom said that to me. She used to say to me, you are a gift to the world. And she didn't just say that to me, Linda. Like, she tried to imbue that into me, which is what was awesome about the way she said it. She didn't say, you are a gift to the world because blah, 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 blah. Or you are a gift to the world if you do this, this, and this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, I never really knew what it meant. She just stated it as though that's what it was and left space for me to fill it in.
Absolutely.
Which is really an awesome truth. I see the gift of that more and more every day. The way that she was just stand for that. She was just like, I know that this is true. I know that it's true. And if I'd be like, why? How do you know that? She'd say, I don't know why and I don't know how. I just know it.
Right.
And it's mind-blowing. And I want to share one of the stories from the book. Actually, me and Linda were talking about this beforehand, and I think kind of captures the essence of what mothering is. And this was like the last week I was with my mom before she passed away with lung cancer. And my mom was on oxygen and morphine, and so she had this oxygen take, and she couldn't move around that well. She couldn't walk that much, and I was getting sick myself. Like, I was there and I was on this bed. She wanted to sleep on the couch, so she was sleeping on the couch, and I was on a bed next to her, and I started getting a sore throat. And she wasn't sleeping a lot, but I fell asleep on this bed next to her. And while I was sleeping, she got up and went into the kitchen and started making soup. Now, I'm sleeping the whole time. I don't know if she's doing this, right? Out of a can, by the way. But that's still a lot because she's got this, like, oxygen tank, And so I'm sleeping, and then I just wake up, and then there she is, like, coming back. Like, I just wake up, and I see my mother holding this bowl of soup with her hands trembling, spilling it. She's almost falling. The soup's spilling. And she's looking at me, like, walking toward me. And I jump up, like, Mom, what are you doing? And I grabbed this bowl of soup from her, and I'm kind of upset at her, and I put it down. I said, Mom, lay down. You need to rest. I can take care of myself. I can get the soup myself. And she was, I wanted to make you some soup. You weren't feeling well. I wanted to make you some soup.
Mm-hmm.
And, whew, man, I didn't really get that right then and there. I got it later, Linda, but I was just like, wow, like that was what it was, like all the way to the end. Like, she wanted to make that soup because one of her children wasn't feeling well, even though this woman's at the end of her life and can barely, like, move around. She still wants to make me a bowl of soup to take care of me. It's just like, wow, that's just
and that brings up all that brings up all those things that I talked about, the nurturing, the sacrifice, the service.
Yes. It's all in that act.
All in that act.
All in that act. And she did, and the joy, Linda, because she did that with joy.
Yeah.
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 She was going to do it if she had to crawl in there. To me, it was like, this woman is crazy. She lost her mind. You know what I'm saying? Like,
she's being a mother.
She's being a mother. You can't, like, there's not a turn off the mother button. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so even if you're ill, you don't stop being somebody's mother if your children are still alive. Yeah, you just don't. Well, you can be a sick mother, you can be a well mother, but you never stop nurturing your children. It's really one of the, I mean, if you really just really think about it, I can give you another story, Mike. One time my mother went to pay the water bill, and she left us in a car, and it was like my oldest sister and myself, and I think my little sister, and she went in, to drop off the check, and where she parked behind right behind us was a ditch. And so my little sister moved the car was in park, and she I don't know how she did it, but she put it in reverse, and the car started sliding down the hill into the ditch. And so my mother comes out and sees this, and she actually runs to the car, and she literally holds the car up from the back to keep it from going into that ditch, and scream and holler for somebody to come and help her. And it didn't go in the ditch. She held it until somebody came.
Whoa.
I remember this. I was very little, but I remember this.
I bet your eyes were wide open.
I was like, wow. And then I, at that point, I thought my mother was Superman. Wow. To me at that point, she was like the strongest person in the world to me. I was like, my mother can hold up cars.
You know what's funny about that? Now, you guys gotta understand, me and Linda have talked a lot, and we've shared a lot of stories, and I never heard you say that story to me, Linda.
You know what made me remember this story? The other day when I was with my kids, I work with a group of kids in D.C., and I was working with them, and we were discussing this whole thing of people finding the strength to do remarkable things, and I gave that example. And I had forgotten almost about that. I hadn't spoken of it, I suppose, and I remember that when I had to, give an example to them, because when you're dealing with young people, you want to make it real for them, right? And so when I gave them an example of my mother, who in that moment became Superman, Wonder Woman, I'll roll into one. Yeah, it's an awesome story, is it not?
Oh my
and
God,
and I just remember, going like the next day and thinking, my mother is so strong. She's the strongest person ever. And honestly, it takes a lot of strength to be somebody's mother.
Oh man.
And you have to have a lot of strength.
You know what's coming up for me right now is like the word will. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like beyond will. Like there's something about mothering, like we said, like that will and that determination. Like, it's being used by something. Like she was used by something. She was used by mothering.
Right.
And Linda, like she wasn't probably thinking or saying anything. She was just used by what mothering is. The same way, when you look in nature and, an antelope or a deer is attacked by, a lion or whatever, and the mother's going to get in there, man. You know what I'm saying? And when all the other deers or whatever run away, the mother's is going to hang out when it's dangerous.
Right.
And try to stop it.
It really speaks to what we were saying before about this ability to, the story that I referred to earlier about my mother's incredible strength, and you were talking about this will that one must have, right? Beyond will.
That's it. Yes.
And I was talking about this sacrifice because in that moment my mother was willing to sacrifice her health, her well-being, her life. And I don't think there was, my children in that car, I'm not letting this car go over this hill into this ditch. And that was
not going to happen.
Right. And then people who ran out to help her were saying, to her like, "Are you crazy?" Like they were just like dumbfounded.
Right.
I mean, really, my mother's shoes were destroyed.
Wow.
You can imagine that, right?
Yeah, I can. I got a visual image of it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, I was talking about being used by mothering. Like there wasn't a thought of herself.
No.
Like, oh no, I might get hurt.
Mhm.
It's my children are in that car, and this car is not going down that hill.
And that she was a stand for our lives.
Whew.
And she stands for us
Literally.
in so many different ways. Right. So there's a standing of the physical well-being, right? And there's a standing for our emotional well-being. And there's a standing a stand for us being cared for and nurtured. There's a stand for us being people in the world who move and make a difference in other people's lives, right? There's a stand for us having joy in our lives. And my mother has stood in so many different ways that when I stand back and look at it, I said, where did she get the energy? My mother has 6 children. Well, has 6 children because we're all still here physically and mentally. And some of us there may be a question mark behind, but my mother somehow, like she seems to never grow tired of it. Like I can remember my mother losing her temper with me once in my entire life. Like to me, that's remarkable. Once I remember her losing her.
That's why I had a similar experience with my mother. That's why I said our mothers are so much alike. Like I remember my mom might have got upset with me once or twice. Like she didn't deliver that energy to me. And look, I know all mothers are not like that. I know there's mothers, just to make sure we're talking about all mothers or what they, what people have experienced. You know what I'm saying? We know that there's abuse and all kind of things. And we're exploring the essence of mothering here, the essence of what it is, and we need, in exploring the essence of what mothering is, I'm sure what comes up is what's not mothering, right?
Right, exactly.
And one of the things we were talking about.
I think we should definitely get into that as well.
Yeah, creation versus destruction.
Right.
Like if the essence of mother is standing for and nurturing life, then the opposite is probably not mothering, which would be like the destruction or the crippling of life, right?
Right.
Which occurs. It happens, right? It happens in our culture.
Exactly.
And one of the things I was talking to you about earlier is that I think you can see, or I was asking you the question, can something be nurtured to a point where it becomes destructive? Right?
I think that is very possible. I think that this powerful mothering, if you flip it over, if you just look at it as if it was a coin, if you flip over powerful mothering on the other side, you will see surrendering, letting go, acceptance. So it's almost like you have this beautiful butterfly, right?
Right.
And it's flapping all around you. And at some point, it's going to actually flap its wings and fly in another direction away from you. The instinct is to stop it. That's the instinct. But the overwhelming, powerful love and acceptance that I have found in people who mother powerfully is that they resist that instinct and they let it go, and they surrender, and they're able to still be there as a presence, but not as a force.
And that's beautiful. That's eloquent, just the way you put that. Be there as a presence, but not as a force. And so it becomes destructive when they continue to be a force.
Exactly.
Right? You know what? I don't know why. As you're just explaining this, I'm getting like the image of like a bird, like the things that birds do, mother birds, and how they kind of like at one point they start coercing the chicks out of the to get out, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's a very dangerous time. I mean,
right. So they do a lot of nurturing in the beginning and coddling,
right,
and feeding the birds. Right. You see them feeding them, and they will make all sorts of aggressive gestures if anybody comes near that nest.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right, and so they're very protective, and they go beyond the call of duty to make sure nothing happens to this baby bird. And then at some point they start to leave the baby bird alone. They fly away and stay longer and longer.
Mm-hmm.
So the baby bird gets to be comfortable with itself and not afraid. And so let's say the mother first trip away could be 5 minutes, and then the next trip she'll do 7 minutes. The next trip she'll do 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with each trip she's given the bird space to build its own sense of self and security. And then at some point when she feels that the bird has gotten all she has to give it, he says, it's time for you to fly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of trust goes with that, Mike. A lot of trust.
Oh, because it's like, mothering. I think part of it. I think there's going to be like a lot of attachment in mothering initially, because like that's attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Like a mother.
Big time.
You think literally like there's breastfeeding. That's a high level of attachment. Like there's this is like you. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like
it is an extension of you.
And so, man, that's a high level of detachment. Like to say, like it's like letting go of me, like who I am. It reminds me of a story with me and my mom. Actually, it brings up some. I remember when I was in high school, and I was a senior in high school, and I was just I wasn't doing that well in school, and I was just kind of getting by and doing whatever, and I just lived with my mom. It was just me and my mom, and I didn't make any plans. I hadn't been planning anything when I got out of high school. I was just like, there's about 3 months to go before I was going to graduate, and in my mind, I was like, I'll just hang out with mom. I mean, really. I mean, I just said, hey, I'm going to be okay. I'll just kick it with mom. You know what I mean? After I graduate, that was my plan. And I think because she was asking me, in her own way, like, hey, what are you going to do? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. And then I remember my mom coming to me, and I knew my mom when she was serious. You know what I'm saying? She came to me and she said, Mike, she sat me down and she said, I just want to let you know, once you graduate from high school, and this is back in like 1989. And she said, once you graduate from high school, if you stay here, then the rent is $200 a month. What? What are you talking about, the rent? She said that the rent, like if you're going to stay here, then you can rent a room for me, and it's $200 a month. Or you're going to do whatever you're going to do, or you can go somewhere else. And I mean, I was offended. How dare she say that I was going to have to pay? And $200 is a lot of money in 1989. I'm like, man, $200. Can we work that out? She said, no, that's what it is. That's how much I rent the room for. And I got to tell you something, Linda. All of a sudden, I started thinking about what I was going to do.
No kidding.
When I graduated, I did, because she was trying all kind of other things, to get my attention. Like talking about it, what are you going to do, and she just kind of just said, like, it reminded me of that old baby bird thing. Because she was like, look, if you're going to stay here, this is this, or else you're not going to stay here. Like that was the option. You could stay here.
Just got pushed out the. In other words, you just got pushed out the nest.
Yeah, pretty much, and I didn't like it. But I knew it was real, so I started like, man, I was like, and then I became very, very worried. Like I was very concerned. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do, man? And it was really an awesome gift, because then it put what she did was she put it in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like she put the concern in my lap, because at my point I was like, it's in her. Like, I'll just stay with her and she'll take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I was thinking. That's the way it had been up to that point in time. Why wouldn't I just keep doing that? Any child will keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They will. The mother's got to cut it off, right?
Exactly.
And so I was offended, hurt, upset, feeling unloved, all kind of things. But then I knew, oh my God, like every day in my mind, you know, I was like, I got 3 months, and what am I going to do? And what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I'll have to get a job, or like it just consumed my thoughts after that. and I did something. And what I did was I never thought I was going to do this. And I said I would never do this. Never. Before that, I would never do anything like this. But I joined the Army. And what I did was, when I joined the Army, I was like, well, cool, now I'll have a place to go, right? You know, like I'll have a place to stay. Mm-hmm. And I set it up. So because I knew I was going to have to pay rent with her, like, right after I graduated. So I set it up that when I graduated on June 7th, 1989, and I was on the bus to go to basic the next day, June 8th, 1989.
Mm. Wow.
The next day. So I wouldn't have to pay rent. But, man, it got me out, man. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And believe me, it was scary, and it was not comfortable, and it was all kind of things, man. You know, it just brought me up against life, man. You know, it's like, whoa, I really didn't want to go into the Army. Like, I wasn't really excited about it. But that's what I did.
All right, and so she had to be the, you know, at that point she has to be the guide.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you know,
it's the line.
Yeah, because I think it's all these different roles you have to play as a mother.
And you know, and you got to understand, my mother is like, she's very like loving and very caring, and I know that was hard for her to do, man. Like that was hard. That's probably one of the hardest things. And she did something very similar with my brother, almost the same kind of thing. So my brother, you know, he's like 8 or 9 years older than me, and I remember this because my dad had left, and so it was just me, my brother, and my mom and my sister. My sister was older too. And my brother's like 18, 19 years old. I'm like 9. My sister goes to college, and my brother went to my mom and said, because there wasn't like a man in the house, and my brother went to my mom and said, I'm going to stay here and get a job and take care of you and Michael. I mean, which is really honorable. He was going to do this, Linda. You know my brother Tom. And my mom went off on him. Like, she got nasty with him, Linda. She got, like, really, really nasty with him. And I think she might even cursed at him. So, like, you are not doing that. Like, she's like, you're going to go and live your life and do. And I remember asking her about that, because, like, the way with my brother, the way she said, I don't know what it was. Like, she didn't do that with me. She did it different with all of us, but she just knew because of the way that he was. Like, he was going to do this, Linda. You know what I'm saying? He was just telling her he was going to do it. And she knew she had to do it that way for him to go. And it hurt him, man. He was hurt. He was hurt. He was offended and hurt and wounded. You know what I'm saying? Because she got nasty. She was like, no. And get out of my house. Like you're not doing that. You're going to go to school. You're going to go. You're going to go. And I remember her telling me that hurt her to do that. But she just knew that because of the way he was, because of his level of, like, loyalty, or the way that his personality was, he'd have stayed there. He'd still be there. He would have been there till 50. He just would have been. And that happens, Linda, with people.
Oh, yeah. That is the honest to goodness truth. I have witnessed that.
Yeah, I've witnessed it too.
Yeah, you really have to. You have to decide as a mother. I think the beauty of this, if you really think about it, is you have to say, this is what I would like, but this is my child's life.
Right.
And so even though I may, in my heart of hearts, I may want him to really stay, but I have to sacrifice what I want so that he can have the life he's meant to have. And you have to just do it.
Yeah.
You know, you have to just do it, because I know that when my oldest brother, went to college, my mother and him have a really close bond, and my mother called me crying almost every day. That first week, and of course, because he was calling her, crying. And of course, and she would be strong for him on the phone, and she would say, well, you'll be okay. You're just homesick. That's part of the process. You'll adapt. You'll meet some people, and you'll be fine. I have to go. And she would call me a boo-hoo. But he never knew she was boo-hooing. Because she knew she...
together, he had been back home.
Exactly. And she knew in that moment she couldn't really be true to her feelings. And so she had to just hold that within herself so that she could lift him up and encourage him to go on.
Right. And I think that's what we're talking about.
It's a small example. It's a small example, but in life that's a huge thing. Yeah, because she was letting go. Even though she was in pain.
So that's probably that line where nurturing can become destructive.
Oh yeah, definitely, because there are some people who use mothering to get their needs met, and that's when it becomes, to me, a very destructive act. When you're actually having children and loving them and nurturing them, not as an act of service, but for your own selfish reasons. And usually those children suffer because no one likes to think that they are here as a project for somebody else to feel good about themselves. And marriages, sometimes it's a marriage situation. People have children to fix marriages.
No, I got that. And
what a burden that is on a child's back.
I got that. And what would you offer people who might be dealing with something like that? Like, what are some tools that, if there's a mother listening or somebody who knows a mother, what's a tool you could offer somebody who might be actually, like, right now dealing with that?
Well, one thing for sure, if you're kind of caught up in that, most of the times you're really not aware, because those same people will tell you, no, I'm doing this for my daughter. And that's why I'm not going to let her marry this guy. That's why I'm not going to let her go to this school, 10 hours away, because I know her and I know she can't handle that. So they really, really, really believe that they are doing it for them, for the child. And I don't think they often are aware, because they themselves are needy, right? And so it's applying this, think about it. It's a great role to have. People need you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so you get to be needed. And that definitely, can fill you up, and it can keep you also from growing as a person, because you're always, giving to somebody else and you don't really have time to be giving to yourself. So a lot of people don't want to meet themselves, and so they use it as a distraction. And they're often not aware of it. And then, and when people try to point it out to them, they often get upset. And the reason why they get upset is because there's some truth there, And so they don't want to look at it. And so it's a simple question. I invite you to take a look. Doesn't mean you're bad, ugly, wrong, terrible. It just means that you are part of the human condition.
Mm.
And so I just invite you to take a look. And I would recommend a beautiful book by Wayne Dyer called The Sacred Self.
Mm.
Because when you hold the self as sacred, you hold all the selves as sacred.
Mm.
When you hold your own self as sacred, you can hold your daughter's self as sacred, your son's self as sacred. And all that is sacred does not belong to us. We are simply just guiding and protecting and nurturing and honoring that which is sacred.
Mm.
And so know thyself is the answer to that question. Know thyself to heal thyself. And so it starts with a question, am I this person? Am I behaving this way? Have people said this to me and I rejected it? Is there any truth in this? And just, be willing to be with what comes up for you. And if somebody says something to you and they say, your son is henpecked, instead of getting upset, why would they say that? See if there's something there. And one clue is when you raise children who are afraid of their own shadow.
Mm.
So, and I'm not saying they have to be super brave and bold and whatever. When they're literally afraid to take a simple risk, afraid to make a mistake, afraid to fail, afraid to turn the corner in a direction that they're not familiar with, then something is lost to them. And I would throw out there as a possibility that what's lost to them is that you didn't give them what they need to have their wings clipped and to take those risks and to develop those muscles and to create that sense of self. Because you can't give them that. They have to earn that. So you have to move back. You have to create the space, and they have to fill it in.
Mm.
It's kind of what you said about your mother, Mike. When she
Yeah.
said you were a gift to the world, she created the space for that. And then she allowed you the freedom to fill that in. And so a lot of us feel, and I can say, my parents included, they don't want to see me in pain. They don't want to see me hurt. They don't want to see me in a bad situation. They don't want to see me make a mistake that could harm my life. And so, my parents, and I have two very strong parents, but they're very different. My mother tends to coddle. My father tends to push. So I think it's a great combination, honestly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And that's probably true of most, men and women, right? There's the, but we're talking about fathering. We'll do Father's Day call, and that's a different kind of energy, right? That's necessary and important. It's the pushing out energy, or it's, hey, this is what you need to do, and the mothering energy is the stroking and.
Right, because my father's always no excuses. I don't want to hear your excuses. Mm-hmm. If he gave us a task, and we come back and say, well, we didn't get it completed because he would stop us and say, I don't want to hear your excuses. Mm-hmm. And we're thinking, these are not excuses. These are valid reasons. And then my mother would come in and she would try to compromise and say, well, okay, give them an extra hour to get it done. And depends on what it was, he would say, okay, you got 1 hour, get it done. But sometimes he would say, no, I told you to do it, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm going to have to let you feel the consequences of you not following through with what I asked you to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, of course, my mother always interceded on our behalf and tried to get our punishment lessened. To try to get our sentence reduced.
She was trying to make the blows softer.
She always did, always. you know, because she knew they were going to come. So, you know, she would at least try to make them, you know, not destroy us. And that was her thing, you know. I don't want them destroyed. And she used to say to my father, you can punish them without destroying them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she helped my father a lot because my father, he can curse and scream and shout terrible things. And my mother say, no, you don't, that has nothing to do with punishing them. That's you know, spitting out your anger. And I'm not going to let you do that.
Mm.
You can't hit them when you're angry. You can't discipline them when you're angry. Because that's not about discipline. That's about, you know, you releasing your stress, your tension, your feelings or whatever on them. She said, and they're not, you know, going to be dumped on. And so I respected her a great deal. My mother's not a loud-spoken woman. She's a soft-spoken woman, but she always made her point. You know?
Right, she just picks up cars and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I say the strength is unbelievable because my mother's a quiet storm. You know?
Yeah, I got that. No, I totally got that.
Right.
And, you know, I think it's important to go back to that point of, like, the whole attachment. And, you know, if anybody's dealing with that, I think the important part is, like, being gentle with yourself in the process and know, because I think, you know, all mothers are coming up against that. Like, they're dealing with that in some way. And mothering of, like, you know, that letting go, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people,
they're not just saying, like you said with your mother, she wasn't like, oh, I just let him go and I let him go, you know? And it's just easy and it's just, you know, sometimes detachment can be, that's probably like the highest level of detachment. You know, you can hear that with your mother, like with your brother, you know, when he was crying every day and then she was crying, but she was, you know, she was doing it.
Right.
You know, detachment doesn't just mean, oh, I think, you know, the act of detachment doesn't always mean fluffy and wonderful, peaceful feelings.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like a challenge, man. It's like, hey, you know, it's like my baby and I don't want to let him go. And
right. It's an uphill climb, but it's a climb you know you have to make if your child is to become an independent, self-sufficient, profound human person,
right?
Human being, right? You know, there. I mean, it's like here are the ingredients, but you got to mix them exactly right. You know, how much compassion, how much discipline, how much guidance, how much coddling, how much respect. You know what I mean? Like. I think it's a balance, and you have to know how much of what to put in. And you kind of have to go almost on what your spirit says, because you might decide to listen to something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you do it, you don't feel right. You don't. A part of you is a twinge if you say, oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to go ahead and send my daughter $500 even though she just raked her card and drinking because she was drunk. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have this feeling like, oh, my God, I really shouldn't do it. But you go ahead and do it anyway. Right?
Yeah, totally. And you know, I want to ask you another question then about, because I think maybe sometimes we tend to think that, like, mothering or what mothering is, it only has to do with, you know, whether, you know, is that just exclusive to, you know, women who actually have babies, or can men be mothering, or women who have never had babies be mothering? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think of it more as like energy.
Right.
I think of it more as like energy. And also, I mean, because when we talk about it, we often talk about the role. But I think of it more as energy, connecting to living beings, living creatures, or however you want to say it, because I don't have any children. And when I often tell people that, people say, oh, you would make a great mother. You know, You don't have any children, really? Oh, but you're so nurturing. You're so this, you're so that. So I think it's an energy. And people automatically, assume when they meet me that, oh, I bet you have really sweet children. And I go, unless you count my husband, no.
That's wrong. But it's funny you say that because I've heard the same thing. People have told me I'd be a great mother, too.
Right. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
It's all energy. It's all energy. It's all energy. And so, and I think, and also there's a fathering energy. I have that as well.
Mm-hmm. To have a balance of that.
Yeah, I think, and because I think I had this really great mixture, coming from my family of having this father who was, this way and my mother that was that one way. And so I have both of those things that have been instilled in me. And so I can be, part of the reason why I think I do connect with children so powerfully, and I do, work with them in ways that people have said, well, how did you do that or whatever, is because I'm able to bring both of those energies. And I go back and forth between those energies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to do that.
You probably could you could probably teach a workshop on that.
I probably could, especially to people who work with children, because honestly,
or single parents, right?
Right, exactly. People, and there are a lot of single parents these days.
Oh man,
there's a time.
That balance.
There's a time to coddle and to hold their hand, and there's a time to say, okay, enough, get up, clean your nose, and get yourself together. I'm giving you 5 minutes, and walk away and let them do whatever they're going to do, and then come back and say, your 5 minutes is up. You got it? You understand what I'm saying? All right, come on, let's go. And so there's a time to do that and not feel bad. Like I can do that and not feel any guilt.
Yeah,
I don't feel guilty because what I do. The reason why I don't feel guilty because if a child is harmed or injured in my presence, my first thing to do is to validate their feelings. To say, oh, I'm so sorry you're feeling hurt right now. So sorry you're in pain. Oh my goodness, I know it must really, really hurt. Like I do that first. Because most of the time with children, if you validate their feelings, they get over it really quickly. And I mean really validate it. And when they know that you are not only just seeing what happened to them, but you are acknowledging you have a right to feel this way about what happened to you. And they pretty much, they get it. They get it.
Now,
I said, okay.
You know what I realized, Linda, is that I don't think I didn't get that balance growing up the way that you did because, my dad, he left alone when I was about 8. And I got some of that from my dad, but then I was just getting more nurturing from my mom. I mean, she offered that at the end there, to get, so I, to cut the cord to be like, hey, you got to go. And then I went out, and I think I got the other part, through the Army, which was not necessarily, because, the Army's you could say it's like a fathering energy, it's like a very directive, and they're not asking questions nicely, and it's like, go do this. And when I went into the Army, I was getting lit up, man. I was literally like, how dare you, ask me to, do something, because my mom didn't do that as much. She wasn't like, do this or do that or do this. She just didn't. She didn't have a lot of that energy. Other than that, she got it up. She pulled that energy up to get me out of the house, though. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you got to go out. And but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, the Army for that, because I think there's still a way to use that, the fathering energy. I don't know if I want to say sparingly, but just use it in a way where it's not diminishing.
Exactly. You don't have to destroy it. You don't have to destroy a person.
Right. And it sounded like even with your dad, maybe a little bit of that happening. There was some diminishing, I'm angry and I'm going to hit you. That's like a diminishing of the child's being. You know what I mean? I'm angry and I'm going to hit you because you're a bad kid.
Right, and then you have to hold that person's anger, so then it becomes your anger.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Totally.
and then you spread that to somewhere else. And my mother was always saying, you know, don't dump on them. They're not here for you to dump on.
Mm.
So, you know, and I was always a listening kid. You know, I listened to what was being said between the adults.
You were trying to figure it all out, right?
I listened and I analyzed. And I'm like, oh, my mother is really smart.
Yeah, I'm going to figure out how to survive this game.
Yes, exactly. So, and I think most children have that. Most children are, you know, in tuned emotionally in ways that we're not aware of, we're not present to. We think we're hiding something from our children. You're never hiding anything from your children. That's for all the mothers and the fathers out there. You're never hiding anything from them.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
your children don't.
get the whole thing.
Yeah. They don't know the details. They don't know the details. They might not even know the history, but they know that there's something going on.
Right. Right. They can't
You're never hiding from them.
Right.
Exactly.
They can't
You're
articulate
never
or
hiding
elaborate
anything
on
from
it.
them. Because they have an emotional intelligence. They're born with it. All children are born with that. It's very sharp. It's very keen. And it is the reason why they survive in those first few months, because they can't really tell you what's going on.
Mhm.
You know, but they use emotions to communicate with you. When they cry, crying is an emotion. It expresses an emotion, right?
Mhm.
So they use emotions. They laugh. They cry. They make little sounds, you know. They're letting you know when they are curious about something, or when they're scared, or, you know, when they're angry, or when they're feeling, you know, abandoned. They tell you all of that by their emotions. And so they have that emotional language very early. And so that's how they relate is to you. And so they can feel when you know, the voices, the tone of voices change in the room, right? They can feel when you pick them up with force instead of with gentleness. They can't say, hey, you're being rough with me, but they feel it.
Right. It's communicated.
Yeah, it's communicated.
Yeah.
So they're very self-expressed.
Oh, I got that. Yeah, I know they are.
Yeah, they are. And so that's why I think the mothering thing is so important, because you have to learn their language. And you know, it's a beautiful thing when you hear a baby cry and you go, oh, what's wrong with the baby? And maybe blah, blah, blah. And they must say, oh, no, that's a hunger cry. You know? And so that's because
like
she's
tuning in.
learned.
You're tuning into the energy.
She's in that baby's world.
You know what that brings up for me is, you know, my brother, I have a brother who's hard of hearing, and he was born hard of hearing. And he actually didn't speak clearly, I think, until about 7 or, like, he didn't speak to where anybody else could understand him until he was, like, 7 or 8 years old. You know, because he was hard of hearing. You know, you ever heard someone, like, with a deaf lip, so when he talked, like, he's like, blah, 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 and other people couldn't understand it, but my mother could understand everything he was saying. She understood him. She was like the only one who understood him. And she said it was more on like an emotional level. Like she understood what he was wanting, you know, what he needed and what he wanted from. And I was just like, wow, that's extraordinary. That's an extraordinary thing.
Right, because, I mean, when a child, like, let's just say you have a child who cries, Mike, and you're actually, to determine what the child is crying for, you have to listen to the emotion imbued in that cry. And then you have to record it in your brain. It's just really an amazing thing.
It is amazing.
An amazing thing.
It is amazing. So there's probably some hardwiring for that too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there's probably studies done on this. You know, like where when you hear a certain cry. I bet you there's been studies done on that for mothering. Like they get something.
I had a woman down the street from where I live told me that when her child cried, when a child was at the babysitter, and she went back to work, her breast milk would start to flow.
Wow.
And she would call, and woman said, "Yep, he's crying up a storm." And she said, "I figured that because my breast milk is just flowing."
That's incredible.
Isn't that incredible? She said, "It's just was." She said, "I can't even explain it." I said, "Well, that's hardwired. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She didn't do it. It was happening."
That's right.
And she always knew when he was crying and when he was upset, because she said, "I don't know why, but that's what happened to me." She said, "I have no idea. It didn't happen with her first child, which was a girl. It happened with her second child."
That's being used by mothering.
And I think, he was born as a preemie. So she was deeply attached to his, and she was standing for his survival. And so their bond was really, really fierce. And I wonder if that level of compassion she had for him, was part of that, and plus with the biological stuff, all tied in together, because we are whole creatures.
Yeah, we are whole.
There are a lot of different, right, we're whole and complete, so there are a lot of different mechanisms happening, but it's happening to work for the whole. And so, there's so many powerful, I think Marianne Williamson wrote a book about mothers and mothering and all of that, which is a powerful collection of stories, which if you ever want to be inspired to read, just read even, a few of those stories if you don't want to read the whole book, but just complete inspiration. And I think when we think about guiding our children into their greatness, whatever that is, and I believe what Dr. King says, that we can't all be rich, we can't all be famous, we can't all be whatever, but we can all be great because we all have the capability to serve. I truly, profoundly believe that. And
I believe that too.
Standing for your child's greatness, standing for your child's greatness, or your children's greatness. You have, in order to do that, I think you have to accept that they are not yours, that they come to you and through you, but they don't belong to you. And there's a beautiful song that Sweet Honey in the Rock sings, and I wish I could sing because I would sing it for you. But it's basically it's an African proverb, and it says, "Your children are not yours; they don't belong to you. They just come through you. They belong to us." So
sounds like the essence of detachment.
I think on a very high level, pure and high level. Because if you recognize that, first of all, Mike, if you recognize that early on, then you get to experience what it is to live in a space of honor. Because what an honor it is to be chosen to guide this life force, this life energy, to guide it so that it can serve us. I mean, what an honor to be able to do that. And if you could hold that space of honor, then your parenting is very different than if you see this as, okay, I have to do this because this is what people say I should do. Right?
Yeah.
Very different space. Very different space. And, and for the people who have been reared with that type of mothering, there's a sense of being connected to something bigger than yourself. And I'm not going in a religious way here, but there's a sense of being connected to something bigger than yourself. There's this really powerful connection with that, which is service-oriented, that is the giving away of something, the generosity that, like, I know my mother's very, very generous. And there was this, I can say my father's too. My father's also very generous. They're generous in different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this whole idea of being of service, my mother is generous in ways that imbues service. She will just do anything and everything for you. My father is generous in the way of standing for you, getting what you need to become an efficient human being on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Self-sufficiency.
Yeah. And I think that's an act of generosity.
Yeah.
Because I would say to my dad, Dad, how do you spell dentist? And he says, here, look it up. Let's get the dictionary and let's look it up. Mm-hmm. And I used to say, well, can't you just spell it for me? What's the deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, then you won't know how to spell it. I'll know how to spell it, but I already know how to spell it. But you still won't know how to spell it. And so, and I just didn't get that when I was a kid. Like, oh, my dad always has to be so difficult. Right? But now I see that was an act of generosity.
Yeah.
Right? That was a generous act. I'm like, oh, my God, why couldn't I see that? That was an act of generosity. He was saying, I'm giving you to you. So, and I suffered because I just thought, this man is just mean. He can never just make it easy, not even for 5 seconds. But his thing is, I'm giving you the strength that you're going to need in the future. Right now, you're all secure and protected and all of that. But you're going to need something else later. And if I don't give it to you now, when later shows up, you won't be ready.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I didn't get that.
Pretty much.
I didn't get that. I didn't understand that. And so now I realize. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this. I think this is important. For what you're bringing up is that, and switching gears. Well, it's along the line of what you're saying, but along motherhood, like we're talking about, like this powerful kind of mothering or receiving that kind of mothering. Because, we know this in our coaching and coaching people, and is that, like, the question that comes up for me, and not everybody gets that kind of mothering.
Right.
A lot of people don't, so those people that haven't had that kind of mothering, then what? Like what would you say to them? What could be offered to them? Like, hey, my mother wasn't there, my mother abused me, or she wasn't alive.
There's a beautiful possibility that's always in front of us, and that is called acceptance. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. But in order to move forward in your life, you have to find acceptance of whatever the situation was, and then once you are, comfortable and ready, you move on to creating something else. So you can actually mother yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
You can recreate yourself as the mother that you would love to have. And you can do that anytime you want. Obviously, you have, if there's some anger and all that, you have to go through the grieving, all of the stuff, the whole stages of grief,
like I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
Right.
You'd be like, I didn't get it, right?
You can't create. You can't create in that state.
This is very interesting, man, because I feel like this is the essence of, this is a big component of what I do in coaching. Is that one of the things I was saying, and it's the same thing you're saying, is that I see people. I've done it myself. We can get stuck in what I didn't get. Like, you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-year-old people talking about, having conversations about what they didn't get from their mommy or daddy. And they live in those conversations. Like, sometimes they're not direct. They're not directly saying my mom did, but it's playing itself out in life. You know, it's being played out in life. And there is a very direct way. I mean, I'm glad that we're talking about this. There is a very direct way you can mother yourself or father yourself. I mean, I'll give you an example for myself. Like I had a conversation. You know, my dad left when I felt like I was mothered. I got the mothering, and you know, I felt like I didn't get fully fathered the way fathering shows up, or the way that I wanted to be fathered. Right. So in my adult life, that led into a conversation in my mind of like, I didn't get fathered and he didn't do it for me, you know, like he didn't do this for me and he didn't do that for me. So it's like ongoing conversation, and it's impacting my life. That conversation in my head about, and see, what part of what I did was I ended up doing like what you're saying with fathering. Like I began to start fathering myself, and the way that I did that was if you can get, and if you're listening to this call, if you can get to the essence of whatever you think it is that your mom, or we'll just say your dad too, you know, we're talking about mother, but whatever they didn't give you, get to the essence of what that is. I don't care what it is, you can directly give that to, you can directly give it to yourself. And I'll give you an example from me. The essence, you know, I could sit and talk about what I thought my dad didn't give me, he didn't do this or he didn't do that. But what I mean by the essence is always like an experience. It's always something like I felt like my dad didn't see me. And I felt like he didn't acknowledge me. You know, he didn't see me. Like, I had to, don't get caught up in a story, but if you can get to the essence, like, keep asking yourself, like, what's the essence of what I didn't get? If you think you didn't get anything from your mother. And the essence is always a sort of a kind of experience. Like, I didn't get seen, I didn't get acknowledged, I didn't get loved, I didn't get appreciated, I didn't get affection. And all of those things you can give to yourself directly. I don't care what it is, I promise you can. And the way that I did that, when I got to the essence, I felt like I didn't get seen and acknowledged, then I began a practice. And that practice was just to look at myself in the mirror every day, in my own eyes, and basically just directly say to myself, I see myself. I acknowledge myself. And I got to tell you, Linda, I did that for months, and I would be in tears. You know, like it was like, oh my God. And it's actually a way you can fulfill yourself. You can actually fulfill yourself with your own words and your own intention, and like put that into yourself and give yourself whatever it is that you think you need. In a very, very direct way. When you know what that essence is, and look, if you're listening to this, I know a lot of people sometimes, you know, when I'm coaching people or people hear that, they might think that that's corny, or they think, you know, I'm not going to do that, I feel foolish or whatever. And if you're saying that, you know, as I'm sharing this with you, I want you to get present to the complaint that you have about your mom or your dad. Because here's the thing. Here's the reality of it that I had to deal with, is I was waiting for my dad to see me. I was basically saying, I'm going to punish you, and I'm going to be angry at you because you were supposed to see me and acknowledge me, and you didn't see me and acknowledge me the way that I want to be. And I was waiting for it to happen. I was waiting for it to happen. And the reality of it, this is like a stark reality, is that you may wait your whole life and that doesn't happen. Because that other person just may not do it. And you live in that conversation, and it creates a miserable experience of, I'm not being seen and acknowledged. But here's the thing, folks. You don't have to wait for it. You really don't have to wait. You don't have to wait to be seen. You don't have to wait to be acknowledged. You don't have to wait to be loved. You don't have to wait to be appreciated. You don't have to wait for somebody to be affectionate to you. You can even be affectionate to yourself. You can even hug yourself and appreciate yourself. You don't have to wait for that stuff to happen.
And I'd like to say this, Mike.
Yeah.
I think as an exercise that they could possibly do to get to that place where you were is to do an exercise where you You say, what happened? What was the story about what I made up about what happened?
Yes. What was the story I made up about what happened?
Right. Sometimes they are collapsed, and they seem as one.
Right.
And so if you could, just get a piece of paper out and start writing. What happened to me? Just the facts.
Yes.
My dad left. That's the fact.
Yep.
What did I make it mean? I made it mean that he didn't want to be with me.
Yeah. Maybe he doesn't love me. He doesn't care about me.
Right.
He doesn't see me. He doesn't know. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so then draw a line. Put one on one side and one on the other. So I think it's really clear. It'll be really clear for people to move to the next step if they can get through that step.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So first step, what happened to me? Just the facts. If you don't know what a fact is, please look it up.
Right. A fact is just what actually happened. So I use myself, and so like, in my thing was like what happened. My dad left the house when I was 8 years old. He left.
Mm-hmm.
He moved out
mm-hmm.
to live somewhere else. That's just
mm-hmm.
what happened. Moved his stuff out of the house. He left. And then when I made that, then the story, what I made up is that he doesn't love me, or I'm not good enough, or he doesn't see me. A lot of stories there. Like it's what you add on top of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened
is just you could separate those things.
This is the thing. The way that you know that something is a fact is it's anything that a video camera can record, like that we could see. If you can record it with a video camera, then that's a fact. That's just the way that it happened. Anything else that's not recorded, that we can't see recorded, then that's interpretation or story. It's what you're making up about it. And that's really, I think, a big way to distinguish it right there. And then that can begin. And then what happens is that I think the next part of that, and once you distinguish between the facts of what happened and the story that you made up, then what you want to put down is what you're missing. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was missing from me? Or what's missing now? Like, what's missing that I'm not getting? Or I don't feel like my mom or dad's giving me, like my mom's giving me, whatever. What's missing? What do I want them to say to me? That's a great question. Like, what is it that I ask one of the things I use? Like, what do I want? What did I always want them to say? Or what is it that I always wanted them to do? And make a list of all the things you wanted them to say and all the things you wanted them to do. Now, this is not to get them to say it and do it, by the way, okay? But you just make a list of those things. Like, I wanted him to say this. I wanted her to say this. I wanted him to do this. I wanted her to do this. And once you have that list compiled of all those things you wanted them to say to do, then make another column and turn all those things into I statements. So if I wanted my dad to see me, I said, I wanted my dad to see me, and I wanted him to pay attention to me. Then you turn into an I statement that I pay attention to myself and I see myself. If I wanted my dad to, take me to the park, then I take myself to the park. You can take yourself to the park. I don't care what it is, whatever you think it is that they didn't give you, you can directly give it to yourself. Now, right now. You don't have to wait. And here's the other thing about that, is that do that for yourself, and you can even go back to them and ask them directly. You can say, hey, I want this. Like, I want to go and spend time with you, or I want to be acknowledged by you, or and they might say no. You got to deal with that. Because it can be a risky thing. But the thing I want you to get clear on is that you can definitely give it to yourself. Whether they choose to give it to you or not, they may. That's just the way life is. They may or may not say it or do it.
Right.
And you don't have to live in misery waiting for it.
Exactly. And then the beauty of that, Mike, is that after a period of doing that, of being in that space, in that energy, something magically happens. You don't know when. You don't even know exactly how it happened. But somehow, magically, hello?
I'm here.
You move into the space where you are not being ran by those things. They don't own you. And it's a subtle process. You look up and you're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing not to be owned by your past.
Oh, my God.
Because then you can fully be in your present. And all the things that would be coming to you that you would miss because so much energy is spent in your past that you are now able to receive. And once you're able to receive those things that are in your present, because you are now present, then you get to connect with people in a powerful way. And then even more of your needs get met. And then you're able to meet other people's needs. But you can't do that if you're not here, if you're not fully present.
Right. It's freedom.
So that's why it's so powerful.
Totally. It's freedom.
That's the power. That's the gift.
Yes.
That is the gift.
You are a gift to the world.
Hallelujah.
Whether you think you are or not. Just like my mom said, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm a stand for that, Lindsay. Like I'm a total stand for that. Like, you know, part of the reason I wrote that book, my mother said that message to me, and she imbued it in me. You know, she wasn't offering it to me. She wasn't asking me. You know, she wasn't suggesting it to me. She was saying, you are a gift to the world. Whether you like it or not or believe it or not. And that's the message I have to deliver as well. Like, I'm just basically taking her message, and I'm saying that to everybody. You know, like, you are a gift to the world. You don't have to think you are. You don't have to believe you are. You can believe it or not believe it, or do whatever you want to do with it. You can fill in the blank, though. But there is a purpose. You're here for a purpose. And part of your purpose is to fill in the blank for what your purpose is.
Exactly.
It's not mine. It's not my choice. It's not my life to fill in the blank of that. But you definitely can fill it in. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. You're already filling it in with something. And there's a way that you can start to take responsibility for that. Because somehow people think that if they just don't do anything and they just sit on a corner and do nothing, that they're not taking responsibility for their purpose. You're responsible by default just because you're here. Saying I'm not responsible does not make you not responsible. Like, you're here.
Because you're here, and so you can fill in with purpose or you can fill in with something else. Right.
Some kind of purpose is being fulfilled.
Yeah.
It is.
So
here's the thing, Linda, is that you are being used. Everybody's being used by something, whether they like it or not. You just are. But you have some say-so over that. It's an oxymoron to me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, you're being used by something, anyways, and you have a choice over what it is the way that you're going to be used by it. You know, you could be used by it by being a crack addict on the corner, or you can be used by it by being the President of the United States and everything in between. But you're going to be used for some purpose in the way that plays out and manifests in the physical reality. You really have some say-so over how that looks. Well, your purpose is going to be fulfilled.
And that's why mothering is so important, Mike.
Oh, my goodness. It is.
It really goes back to that when you think about President Obama, for instance, talking about how his mother would make him get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and make him read and make him prepare for class to go to school. And he thought it was the most ridiculous thing in the world, of course, because he's like 9 years old or 10 years old, right?
And now look at it. And now look at him.
You know?
And I mean, a single mother, too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And she knew that she wasn't going to have the time to you know, after school to be with him and help him with his homework and help him to go over his lessons and help him to read and whatever. So she used the time that she had available, which was early in the morning. She could just say, "I want to sleep I want to sleep in the morning."
That's right.
Okay. And after school, I'm gonna be at work, and then you'll just be over to the neighbor's house, and hopefully the neighbors will, you know, work with you in your homework, or maybe they won't. I don't know. But I'm not gonna have time to deal with that because I'm gonna be at work. And after that, I got to make dinner, right? So she came up with an idea. I tell you what, we'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and we'll sit down. We'll go over everything you don't understand.
That's right. That's right.
So,
and
I mean, that's some powerful mothering.
And you know what, Lynn, I think, you know, when we'll bring the call to a close, but before we do that, you know, I just want to bring it back around that, because I think this is key, is that, you know, mothering is important, for sure. And if you didn't get the mothering that you didn't think you were supposed to get, or whatever, you know, you just didn't get it, you can still get it. It's available to you. You have access to it. It's in your DNA. It's in your blood. It's in your bones. You can do it for yourself. You can mother yourself. You can be mothered through friends. You know, you can be. It's right here
always
in front
people.
of you.
Yeah, I mean, I have several mothers.
Me too. Me too.
Women who mothered me, and more ways than I can even explain.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I just want to like instill that and really leave people with that, Linda, that however you were mothered or however your mother was, and believe me when I say this, whatever she did, she was doing absolutely the best that she could. I know that in my heart. Every mother is doing, even if it seems like atrocious things, it's easy for us to look at it and say, that's horrible, that's terrible, why would she do this, or, you know, I believe in my heart that every mother giving the tools and the resources or what she knows, you know, what she knows and what the tools that she has from that framework, from the framework and perspective that she has, that she's doing the best that she could, that she can. We all really are. And I know that's hard to, you know, believe and swallow for some things, but, you know, that's what it is. And that really helps to bring an exception.
But there are exceptions. There are exceptions. I would like to say that on the record. There are exceptions to that rule, as there are exceptions to every rule. So I think there are some people who had horrific, I mean, diminishing, destructive, you know, forces. And so I do want to speak to those people that you have to seek healing. You can't understand it. You can't use the brain to analyze it, to figure it out, to make sense of it. It'll consume you. You have to seek out some help. You have to find some counseling. You have to find some peace. You have to find some forgiveness. And I know that's a huge thing. That's why I put that last. So get some help, start the healing process, and move into forgiveness. And then let go, and then create something. Because, I mean, I'm working with young people. I know some stories that if I talk about them, I'll start to cry. And we'll not be able to stop. So I won't go there.
I got that. I got that. And we all know.
Yeah.
If you're listening, everybody knows those stories. We hear them. We know what they are.
Right. And so I'm speaking directly to those people.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Linda.
You're very welcome.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's bring the call. Let's wrap it up and bring the call to a close. And
well, I would like to.
Man.
I would like to end by saying, sending out a shout out to all the mothers whether you are male or female, because I don't think you have to have a certain genitalia to mother. We're obviously have been conditioned to see it as a role for a certain gender, but I don't see that. I really think it's about an energy and a connection. And I want to thank all of those women and the men and all of the people who stood in the gap as witnesses for children on the planet to be loved, to be cared for, to be understood, to be seen, to be acknowledged. And one person comes to my mind strongly, and that is Oprah Winfrey. A woman who has not one child that I know of, but who I consider to be a profound example of motherhood. So shout out to you, Oprah.
If you're listening.
If you're listening. and I want to acknowledge my mother also, because I think she is the evidence of grace. And I also want to thank Miss Gemma, who has been both a teacher and a guide for me in my womanhood. And I have been so honored and so blessed, Mike. Sometimes I actually say, wow, like, how could it be possible if I could have this many powerful mothering figures in my life? Like, how is that? How lucky am I? That whenever I needed a mother, quote unquote, figure, one was made available to me.
Wow.
So, and then in turn, Mike, I was able to use that and mother other people who were in need of mothering.
Yeah.
And that is my highest gift and honor, to be able to do that. I was driving. I'm going to end this, I promise, Mike. I was driving along yesterday. I went to I was part of a fundraising event. I was driving along, and I was you know, in the throw of it, just in the throes of, oh my God, what if this doesn't work out? Oh my God, what if this? You know what I mean? That thing that when we're doing something really big, and we're playing a really big game, right? And we've put everything on the court, right? And what if it's not enough? What if I put everything on the court and it's not enough? What if it all just crumbles and then and you know, and I see that I'm not who I think I am, right? And I'm not worthy of all these people's, you know, confidence and belief and whatever, right? So I'm having this moment. I'm driving to this event, and I learned this from my mother, who I just mentioned, Gemma, one of my mothers. And I said just what she would say to me: you need to still yourself. And so I rolled the window down, and I start saying, I surrender. I surrender. I surrender all that I am and all that I ever will be to you. I surrender. I belong to you. I surrender. I surrender all of this, the stress, the doubt, the confusion, the tiredness. I surrender. It is all surrendered. And I'm only a breath of light at this point. And it just all like, whew, and I cried. I had a little tear. Some tears came. I felt cleansed. And then I picked my children up. And then I picked my children up because I was on the way to pick up these kids to take them to this event. These are my kids. So it was 2 teenagers and 2 little kids. And I guess they were about like 8 or something, 8 and 7. And so in that moment, I was being a mother. I couldn't pick up these kids in that shape.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
I got you.
I couldn't do that. I had to. I said no. I can't pick up these kids in a big ball of mess.
I got it.
So I cleared that space and then I said, if I die today, this is what surrender is, right, Mike? I said, if I die today, it will be okay because I would have died in the act of serving. And that's all I've ever wanted to do.
Linda, that just reminded me of the story I said about my mom, like, in the bowl of soup.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was dying in the act of serving, right? Like,
yeah. Exactly. That's all I've ever wanted.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, Linda, because I think sometimes we get caught up in the outcome of things.
Mhm.
You know?
Right.
And, like, there's something about just having that intent, like I think what makes a difference is that, like, you showed up and you're there, and, you know, my mom made the soup and she brought it to me. Like, was it the perfect bowl of soup? I don't know. Was it hot, cold? Like, we get caught up in all this stuff about the way that it was, but there's just something about the delivering of service.
Right.
You know, you delivered it. You can always look at, it was this or it was that, or it could have been better, it could have been worse, it could have been... It just was. It was just delivered.
Right. And I knew that I was the only thing that was standing in my way of delivering it. And so I had to surrender all that which was showing up for me in that moment. And I tell you, I got this from Gemma. I remember her saying, "Still yourself, still yourself." And so I did. I said, I rolled the window down. I got some fresh air, and I just started to say, I surrender it all. And it just was a powerful experience. And you know, to know that I have that ability to do that for myself. I don't need my mommy. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the gifts that I've collected along the way, that's the beauty of it, is that if your mother is not alive, you can have a mother on the planet anytime you want.
Right. That's right.
But you can't be holding on to that it has to be this way or that way.
That's right. It's available.
And so it's available. So I've had all this different mothering, and I've turned all the stuff I've gotten from them over the years. I've been able to integrate it. I ain't gonna say everything, but at least a portion of it. I've been able to integrate it into my beingness and to live from that space. And whenever I need it, I can pull it out. It's like a suitcase. All the stuff is packed in there.
You know something, you just brought up something for me. When you said, you shared something, like, I'm just having I feel like I'm having an opening right now and a breakthrough around, I wrote this poem. I'm not going to read this poem right now, but this it poem, like, there's this thing that we as human beings, we go through life searching. We're always, like, searching for something. Like, is it this, I'm going to get a husband, I'm going to get money, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. It's always like the next thing that I'm going to get. And then once I get whatever that is, then I'm going to have the fulfillment, right?
Right.
We're like looking to be fulfilled, and it's always like the next thing. And like there's something about what you're sharing with me that is really occurring to me, like in a really powerful way now. Is that I'm just getting that, like, I feel like. And I feel like I'm speaking on behalf of all human beings, right, is that we all want to be a contribution. Like, we're looking, what we're looking for is what you just said, like, I mean, that's a particular form, the way it manifested, but we're looking, we all want to be a contribution, Linda. That's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we want to, we want to say, I contributed,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I served.
That me being here mattered.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And it totally does matter, by the way.
It does. It does. And I don't think there's small acts. You know, it reminds me of a story, and this story is in the book, about, you know, with my mom, and I shared this story with you before, Linda, where, you know, my mom's at the end of her life, and she's looking back, she's reflecting on her life. You know, she's sharing things like this with me. She shares this story with me. You know, her and my dad aren't together anymore, and he remarried. But she's telling me about when she was married to him. And she said, and she's thinking, she said, you know what, Mike? She said, one day it was raining outside really hard, and the street was flooded, right? And it was like a foot deep of water, and they were getting ready to cross the street, and my dad, he said, your dad started trying to pick me up to carry me across the street. And I said, no, leave me alone. I can do it myself. And she said she stomped across the street in the water. She went in the house, and she was angry at him for weeks. And she's sharing the story with me. This is what she's talking about at the end of her life. And she turns and she looks at me and she says, you know what, Michael? I could have let him pick me up and carry me across the street. That would have been a gift to him.
Mm-hmm.
And she just got that just then, like right there, just like, what? Wow, like, wow. Like, this is what people think about. They don't think about all the money or the stuff, or, you know, they're thinking about how could I have, like, that would have been a contribution to him. She got that would have been contributing to him.
Exactly.
To let him do that. So it's a simple act.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And you just never really know.
You don't. And that's why I'm glad you shared what you were sharing about, like, we were thinking, oh, well, you know, what if all this doesn't matter, that? It does. It all matters, man. You know, and you know, once it's all said and done, you know, you look at the scoreboard and you say, oh, you know, how much did we get, or whatever, and it's like, I don't know. That doesn't really matter. What matters is that we showed up here and we had the intention and we gave it everything we had.
Right.
And
we gave it generously. And we gave it generously.
And we gave it. And at the end of the day, or the end of your life, that's you know, I think that's what's fulfilling as we go through.
And it's an awesome thing, Mike, because I really like, right now, I'm right in this place, Mike, where I am living in service. Like I'm in that space, and it's like I was driving along, and I said, this is where I always wanted to be. So why am I tripping, right? So that's why I said, this is where I always wanted to be. I want to be of service. I didn't know how exactly. Like I'm not, and this is the thing about keeping it lucid and fluid, is that I'm not attached to how I serve. I don't care what it looks like. I just want to do it. I just want to be part of that which makes us feel whole.
I got it. You know what? Something's coming up, and I want to share this with you. I want to encourage you to write a poem about that and call that poem, I got to where I always wanted to be. Because it just sounded like a poem to me. I got to where I always wanted to be. It's probably the fulfillment of my it poem, right? Like I want it.
Yeah, it's here I am. I am here. And so now that I won't have doubt, now that doubt won't still come knocking on my door, right?
Yeah.
And you know, all these other things. But, you know, when they show up, I can surrender all of that stuff and go back to yes, I'm on the court, I'm playing the game, and all the rest are just details. The suit that I'm wearing, the gym shoes, the points, you know what I mean? It's all just details. It's all details. And so yesterday was a really big lesson for me. And so, you know, it took me a minute, you know, to see, okay, this is a lesson, you know, because I was caught in my emotions, right? And so, and I had to just, you know, I didn't try to say, oh, I don't have these emotions, you know. And it caught me by surprise. I would like to say that as well. Like I was caught off, you know, taken aback. Because I didn't feel that way at all up until the actual day of the event. So all those mothers who've poured their words into my heart and my soul and their lessons and their stories, I was able to pull into that bag and pull something out that actually brought me back to my awareness of who I am on the planet. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm also grateful that I had that experience yesterday of being in doubt. And I'm grateful that I had the experience of having a nervous breakdown.
I got that.
I'm grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that.
And I'm grateful for the experience of bringing the call to a close.
Oh, don't touch me here.
And before I do that, I really wanted to end by reading a poem that my mother wrote to my father, which I really feel like is apropos. And here it is. You don't send me flowers anymore, but you have planted trees whose roots grow deep into the soil, deeper as each year passes, taller with each new springtime. I can watch the drama of life and death with every new season. You don't send me flowers anymore, but you have planted a forever blooming rose bush in the front yard. The more I pick them, the faster they bloom. And I have the pleasure and anticipation all summer long. And the forsythias that you transplanted from my dear friend's yard hit me in yellow bursts when I walk out the door. No, you don't send me flowers anymore, but you have planted ivy that climbs the house and all around and lives in the darkness and shades the ground. Even the tulips and daffodils shout, I love you. You don't sing me love songs anymore, but each child of ours, with each breath they take, is a song celebrating our love and our life, and they will cover the earth with their music. And long after we are dead, our love will still be singing from generation to generation.
Amen.
Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. So we are bringing the call to a close now, and we'll just check out by, letting you know that my name is Michael Brown, and I'm a spiritual life coach. And what I do is I help people to turn their dream into reality. You can find out more about what I do by going to changeyourlifecoaching.com or going to youareagift.com, where you can get some free gifts. You can get a free chapter of the book, free video e-course. And if you want to set up a coaching strategy call with me, turning your dream into reality, give me a call at 760-504-9631. It's been a pleasure and an honor to acknowledge and bless mothers, and I have tremendous gratitude for my mother as well. I just want to acknowledge my mother. And with that, I'm out. Want to check out, Linda?
I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening and being a part of this conversation. I can be reached at 301-520-6929 if you're interested in some coaching. Again, I'm going to be doing a workshop coming up for doing this summer. I'm going to do one each month, and hopefully at the end of the summer we'll have the series to share with people. So, and that's Women, Wine, and Wisdom.
And what's your website again? What's your website?
Tender Loving Coaching, TLC.
It's spelled out like that? Tender Loving Coaching spelled out?
Tender Loving Coaching, TLC.com.
Oh, like that, tenderlovingcoachingtlc.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
All right. I'm out. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.